6 types of reactions to accusations. Among them, there will be 3 unhealthy and 3 healthy reactions. So let's figure out how to react when you are accused of something. My name is Yulia Latunenko, and I have been working as a psychologist for 18 years. An individual psychologist, a family psychologist, and I also help people with psychosomatic disorders. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I suggest you subscribe and give it a like in advance. And if you don't like this video, you can change it to a dislike. And also comment on this video. This will greatly help in promoting my channel on YouTube, and it will also help other people who are looking for quality psychology content. So the first 3 reactions to accusations. The first reaction is that you start justifying yourself from the first seconds, trying to wriggle out, offering some kind of explanations for your behavior, but in a defensive manner. And this means that the accusation hit the mark that you feel guilty, and you are trying to get rid of this feeling through justification. But justification, on the contrary, does you a disservice, because the more you justify yourself, the more you are accused. Moreover, the person who accuses sees that it achieves its goal, especially if it is, for example, a blackmailer and manipulator. And if it's a person who has the right to accuse you of something, for example, your employer with whom you have a contract and specific agreements, but you fail to do something, it will only make them more angry. And in the end, they will simply fire you. You will lose that job. So making excuses is not the way to respond to accusations. Because when you justify your actions, the other person, well, for example, if it's a real accusation that you violated someone's boundaries, did something wrong, and the person is offended by you and tells you yes, or you broke an agreement, yes, or violated a contract, didn't show up for work, got drunk, yes, and your boss tells you something like that, yes, accuses you, but doesn't fire you, yes, then justifications are completely unnecessary here, because when you justify yourself, it is perceived in such a way that you do not acknowledge your guilt. You do not see your responsibility here. You simply, you relieve yourself of responsibility in the eyes of the person who, for example, suffered from the violation of their boundaries due to your actions. Well, that's an example. Yes, because situations can vary. This is when you are accused if you have indeed violated someone's boundaries. And sometimes you are accused for the sake of manipulation and blackmail. Exactly. And it's important to see this too, to distinguish such types of manipulation. So the second type of reaction to accusations is a counterattack. You become aggressive, you counterattack, you do not accept what is being said to you. So basically we are only talking about reactions right now, but we're not discussing what the accusation is, what type of accusation it is, whether you actually did something wrong, violated boundaries, or if it's just manipulation. It's just that the reaction is like this. You say, and you yourself, and you too, and look at yourself. And this is also very destructive, because the conflict in principle doesn't end, but only gains momentum. And, the situation just deepens. In the end, such relationships break down and people, part ways. The third type of destructive reaction to accusations is to take everything upon yourself. You don't analyze whether there is actually your responsibility there, or if you were guilty of something to the person. You are accused and you, like a donkey, carry it on your back. And the more you carry, the more you are accused and burdened with guilt. Thus, it's a very effective way to control and manipulate you. That is, you need to clearly distinguish situations when you are being manipulated and when, in fact, you should share the responsibility, not immediately and quickly take everything upon yourself. You cannot be responsible for another person's mood or feelings, right? Well, you can't, because ultimately a person subconsciously chooses their feelings and mood. You cannot be responsible for another person's health. Unless we are talking about children and adults, we are now talking about relationships between adults. For example, your mom says to you, "Oh, you did this, and now my heart hurts." And you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm guilty." This is the third type of reaction. You cannot take responsibility for something happening in your mom's body. Any bodily reactions, because it is still your mom's responsibility how she reacts to some stress. Therefore, such people who constantly take on responsibility for themselves and for others often become scapegoats in groups. They are burdened, made to feel guilty, and they carry on. And this, in principle, leads to the person eventually committing violence against themselves. They become a victim in relationships. And this is a very dramatic choice for a person, which leads to the destruction of both physical and mental health. Therefore, learn to share responsibility. Don't take everything on yourself. If a conflict occurs, look at the situation. Firstly, if it's not your child, but another adult, and if you are not an employee of this person, they are not your boss. There are some contracts between you. Your job descriptions are discussed. Then see if you are entirely at fault in this conflict. What is your share? What is this person's share in it? Everyone contributes their share to every conflict. So in reality, the responsibility for the conflict is split equally between the parties involved in it. Therefore, your way out is to learn to share responsibility, but not to take it all upon yourself. Because these three reactions lead to a person suffering their entire life and going in circles of this guilt. Not only does the person suffer, but they also cause suffering to those around them. They become toxic due to their childhood trauma. This is a type of trauma where parents used methods of upbringing and controlling the child through reproaches, accusations, and blame. The message from the parents was, there is nothing to love you for, because you are always guilty for everything. And it's you are responsible for our life, our satisfaction, our health. When such pressure is put on a child, they will either constantly justify themselves, become aggressive, or take full blame, even for things they are not responsible for. And now we move on to healthy reactions to accusations. Like this video, don't forget to do so and leave a comment. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. This is also very valuable to me. The fourth reaction. This is a little life hack, movies for people who find it very difficult to apologize. Well, these are also people who have trauma related to feelings of guilt from childhood, who were often blamed and controlled through guilt. And when you are reproached for something, you can thank instead of apologizing. Well, for example, how might this look? For example, you and your friend agreed to meet at 6, but you got stuck in traffic and were an hour late. Your friend is already sitting there nervously, quite angry, and reproaches you. What is this? This is a complete violation of my boundaries. Or even if she doesn't reproach you, you see her dissatisfied face and already understand that there's an internal storm brewing in your friend. And you don't say sorry, but instead you say, thank you for waiting for me. This means a lot to me. Thank you. I'll treat you to a cup of coffee, and next time I'll think about how to choose my route to you differently so that this doesn't happen again. That is mutuo. Even if your manager at work points out your mistake, for example, you prepared a report but made an error in it, and your manager says, look, here you made a mistake. Instead of saying, I'm sorry, you say, thank you for paying attention and noticing my mistake. I will correct it now and will try to be more attentive in the future. So here's a little life hack for people who find it difficult to say the word sorry, because in childhood, their parents often use apologies to humiliate the child, like apologize. With such pressure, coercion. Next, we have the fifth reaction, which is also considered healthy. This is when you realize that due to your actions or some careless words, a person is suffering. And, well, truly you could have acted differently. For example, you couldn't hold back and said some hurtful words. And you understand that this is unfair to the person. Maybe she did annoy you with something, but resorting to humiliation. And you realize that it's your fault here, so you simply apologize. But how do you apologize correctly? You don't say, if I offended you, then forgive me. That's not an apology. It's a doubt that I offended you, or forgive me. And then the justification follows, because I didn't know, because I'm like that. I just have this. And then you justify. You find a reason for your behavior. This is also not an apology. It's an excuse. Or you say, Ukya, forgive me, it's me. But this is also not an apology, it's an accusation. You need to apologize correctly. Say specifically what you are apologizing to the person for. Forgive me for what I did, for causing you pain. This is if you are sure that you really attacked the person too much and caused them some pain or suffering. It is very important to be able to apologize if you realize your guilt, and if you realize that the person is not manipulating you, but that the person is genuinely, well, this is when, for example, your mom says, oh, you don't call me, I feel bad, I'm worried. This is the person manipulating you, because you have the right to freedom, the right to call your mom when you want, when you wish to do so. Therefore, it is necessary to distinguish where there is manipulation and an infringement on your freedom, where there is control, and where you actually promised something, didn't do it, or did the opposite and ruined the person's entire life, for example. In that case, you need to go and apologize. And after that, never repeat it again. Because if the apology is sincere, a person apologizes, for example, when there is betrayal out of foolishness, right? Well, it happens. The person did it, made mistakes, and then goes to apologize and says, well, I will fix this. Now I will prove it. I am truly very remorseful. And there are cases when time is needed and the person corrects it. When you've caused harm, broken something, fix it. But here, you need to distinguish whether you owe this person something when they require something from you, like calls calls, control, like a mother, you don't owe her that. But when, for example, in married life, you agreed not to betray each other, but one goes and betrays, then you are ruining the person's life and causing a lot of pain. You don't end the relationship before the betrayal. If this person is no longer interesting to you and you don't want to live with them, you don't end the relationship and then go and arrange your life elsewhere. You, while being in a relationship, go, for example, well, that happens. Got drunk there, something happened. Well, this often happens with men. Everything happens. We are living people, and this can be forgiven. If the apology is very sincere and the person tries to repair the relationship through their efforts with repentance, then such an approach will be very appropriate. This was our fifth point. And the sixth type of reaction. This specifically relates to manipulations of your sense of guilt. You need to learn to recognize when you are being manipulated. To do this, you should observe the phrasing and how the person does it. Well, a very clear manipulation is when a person says, it's like blackmail. If you do this, then I will do that. If you do this, then I will do that. Well, this is a very primitive manipulation. But there are many hidden forms of manipulation where a person is reproached for not giving attention, not calling, not reporting where they are, with whom, and when. And parents often do this with their adult children. They demand attention, they need love. They say, I'm your mother, and use such manipulations on the child's sense of guilt, thus binding them and not allowing them to separate psychologically. Then you can tell this person that I don't owe you what you are demanding. I am an adult, you are an adult, I did not give birth to you. We only owe our children, and that is until they become adults. We owe nothing to other people. We can give if we love, if we have the resources, but we can refuse. We have the right to say no. But manipulation is a trick that gives a person a better chance to get what they want, because out of guilt, you won't say no to them. And this is often used by parents who have certain illnesses, and they impose this guilt on their children. So you can say, I am not obliged to do for you what you want. I can do it when I am able. I cannot love and give you attention under pressure, for example. I cannot give you something under pressure. It would be insincere. So stop it. And I also have the right to refuse. I have the right to say no to you about something, yes, in response to manipulation. Or if a person consciously accuses you of something you didn't do, this happens in jealousy when they are jealous to control. And you know that you are as clear as glass. And you are accused and you start to justify yourself for something you didn't do. And this means that you already feel guilty. For no what? For doing nothing, right? Maybe you were talking to a colleague, sitting somewhere in a cafe, and you were seen and accused of betrayal, even though it never crossed your mind to do it. So, in principle, you can say a phrase like, I don't recognize myself in the way you describe me. Therefore, I will not apologize for something I didn't do. And just end this conversation. Here, manipulation needs to be stopped with such blocking phrases. And you can also add, you have the right to think whatever you want about me. You have the right to your own fantasies about me, about betrayal, about something you accuse me of. I cannot influence this in any way, but I will not justify myself for something I didn't do. give this video a like. This will greatly help in promoting my channel on YouTube.